Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jai Jai, Govinda Jai Jai, Gopala Jai Jai, Govinda Jai Jai, Gopala Jai Jai, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jai Jai. Govinda Jai Jai 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 Gopala Jai Jai. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Premananda Hari Hari Bo. Okay. So it's such an amazing thing if we think about it. I mean, every year we celebrate New Year's, right? And of course, on the West Coast, we're kind of coming at the end of the wave, right? It starts Like we're 17 hours. Hare Krishna. We're 17 hours behind China. No, behind Japan. 16 behind China. So they were celebrating Janmashtami in Japan 17 hours ago. And in New York, they're just almost ready, right? It's after 9? Yeah. They're celebrating Krishna's birth right now during the Arti, because Krishna was born at midnight. Right? It just so happened that when I came to Krishna consciousness, although I was born here in San Francisco, I didn't come to Krishna consciousness here. I came to Krishna consciousness in Japan. I was there, I was 19, and it happened to be on Janmashtami Day. I didn't know anything about Krishna. I just saw some devotees and they invited me to the temple, and at midnight they had a feast in celebration of Lord Krishna's birth because he was born at midnight. So at every midnight around the planet now, doesn't matter where you go. You could be in Tokyo, you could be in Osaka, you could be in Hawaii, you could be in Beijing, or you could be in Shanghai or Chengdu, or all the way around. Somewhere, at each moment, all over the planet, people are chanting Hare Krishna, and celebrating the birth of Lord Krishna. It's quite an amazing thing. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, the Acharyas, and especially our Srila Prabhupada, the Hare Krishna mantra and the knowledge of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his Bhagavad Gita is spread all over the world now, and we even may be taking it for granted. But it's no accident. And these things are going on. And all over the world, people have an opportunity to hear about Krishna, to chant his holy name. And as Vaisheshika Prabhu was mentioning previously, Krishna, he says it's a very special thing to know about his birth, his transcendental birth, and his transcendental activities. If one comes to know about that, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo viti takvaktaha chakvadeha pranar janma naiti mam iti sorjuna. One doesn't have to take birth again in this material world. Very amazing thing. How at this time we've come in contact and to know about these things. And here, we've come here together today because we have faith in Lord Krishna and that his birth is transcendental. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So all together here, we're glorifying the Lord and acknowledging his birth and his presence in this world. And when we do that, we're actually engaging in a relationship with the Lord. We're coming here and expressing our gratitude to the Lord as a source of everything, and especially as a source of our life. That's something we also take for granted, but have you checked in this moment, are you alive? We don't often check, we just sort of take it for granted. But it's actually only in this moment that we'll notice our life. And as soon as we notice our life, are you noticing your life right now? Of course you're listening to what I'm saying, but are you feeling your body and you're noticing this moment I exist, I'm here, I'm alive? And then we feel grateful for life. And if we feel grateful for our life, it's not an abstract concept. There's a source to our life, a source to our consciousness. So the celebration of Krishna's birth and his teaching, it's not a sectarian affair. It's a real life experience that we're having right now as soon as we check in for a moment and say, yes, I'm here. I'm conscious. I'm alive. Not this body. This body is just a vehicle. But the knowingness that I exist, practically that's about all we know. Actually know. But unless we check in and notice it, even that, we don't know. So just right now, just feel your body from head to toe. As soon as you put your attention on your hand, you can feel it, right? It's not a thought. Wherever we place the consciousness, that's what we become conscious of. So it's the consciousness that's the life. You could say we're having in the body experience, but we're not the body. And Krishna, he's the source of that life. He mentions in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 13. Have all of you read chapter 13? I hope so. It's one of my favorite chapters. At the end of the chapter, Krishna, he mentions how we can become aware of our life and how we can become aware of Krishna as a source of our life. And he says, when you look out and you notice there's light in the sky, he says, just as the sun, which is the source of life, is lighting up the universe, in the same way, the soul, the consciousness, is illuminating the body. The soul is illuminating the body with consciousness. And Krishna is the source of consciousness. He's the source of life. So it's not an abstract thing. As soon as we just check in for a moment, because we're so busy, so distracted, but every now and then we want to check in and say, oh yes, I'm alive, and notice this life. Are you feeling it right now? Just notice your life. And then we just say, thank you, Krishna. One time a godbrother of mine was asked, what is the meaning of the Hare Krishna mantra? And he said, very appropriately, thank you, Krishna. And so when we notice our life and we acknowledge Krishna as the source of our life, simply by our gratitude, by saying thank you, that is bhakti. And that's all Krishna really wants. He has everything else. But he cannot force you to say thank you. We have this power, a little tiny power, not much, but just a little. We can ignore God, ignore Krishna, even ignore our own life and be lost in the illusory world of our thinking. That's our free will. Or we can check in for a moment, notice, I'm conscious, I exist, I am, and then I am because God is. Thank you, Krishna. Thank you, God. And that's all. Just by doing this, we awaken out of the illusory world of the mind, and we awaken to our true self and our relationship with the Lord. And when we come together to acknowledge Krishna's greatness, Krishna is the source of our life, especially on his birthday. One of our great acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said that when we celebrate the Lord's appearance, especially Janmashtami, and we express our gratitude to the Lord, he says that's the mother of devotion. So year after year we're coming together here, joining together, giving our love to the Lord, because that's what he wants. He reciprocates with us and blesses us with bhakti. Actually, the bhakti is already there. We're just reawakening to it. And it's not difficult to understand that Krishna enjoys love, enjoys bhakti, and wants that from us because that's really all we want, isn't it? We want the love of others, and they want our love. But what is that love? Really, when it comes down to it, it's the simple acknowledgement, the simple act of giving our attention to each other and to God without any expectation. Just like I'm talking right now, and you're all giving me your attention. I can see your eyes looking at me. And I don't see anyone on their cell phone, right? And so I appreciate that. And if I was listening to you, and you were talking to me, and I was giving you my full attention, you would appreciate that because I'm showing you love. When we give each other our presence, we're offering our love. Our consciousness is love. And similarly, if you were speaking to me and suddenly I started looking at my WeChat or something like that, if I took my attention away, how would you feel?
Really bummed out.
Yeah? Angry? Bummed out? Well, you would feel like I didn't care about you, wouldn't you? Right? Because our attention is our love. So when we offer our attention to Krishna, whether we're chanting his holy name, or we're offering a flower, or we're looking at the deity, Krishna feels that. And he appreciates that. And similarly, if we withdraw our attention, and he feels that also. Because he's given us this minute, tiny sliver of independence to look at him or not, to acknowledge our life, and he is the source of our life or not. And basically, that's our independence. And proper use of that independence is to choose Krishna. We have the light, we have the darkness, we have the choice, and that's about it. And as soon as we choose the darkness, we get sucked into it and lost in a dream state. So coming together here on Janmashtami is a special opportunity to together show our love for Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So earlier we were reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the fruit of all the Vedic literature. It's stated in the book itself, Nigama Kalpa Toror Galitam Balam Shuka Mukharamrita Drava Samyutam Pipata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Ahuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka. And that is that this Srimad Bhagavatam is the mature fruit from the tree of Vedic literature. Vedas are eternal. They're co-eternal with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's Shruti, which means the original Veda. In the Kali Yuga age, people don't have the qualification to study the Vedas because one has to live a life completely apart from materialistic society and be trained from the very beginning of life in the ashram to hear the sounds of the Vedas, to be able to repeat them, and to perform Vedic ritual. The Shastra says, Kalu Shudra Sambhava. In the age of Kali Yuga, people don't have such qualification Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva has, first of all, divided the Vedas and distributed them amongst his various disciples so that they can be disseminated more widely. But in the approach of Kali Yuga, he then gives us the expanded explanation of the Vedic literature in the form of the Puranas.
Mataji, can you unmute the...
Hare.
We've been going since 4:30 this morning, so these microphones can't keep up. They run out of batteries and we have to replace them. The Puranas are called Smriti, which means an explanation of the original Vedas. Srila Jiva Goswami, as in Tattva Sandarbha, gives very clear evidence from the Shastra that the Vedas and the Shruti and the Smriti are contiguous. There's no breakage. Just as when you have a golden bangle, if it's missing a little piece and you have to fix it, if it's 24 karat gold, you have to replace it with 24 karat gold. So similarly, the Puranas, the Smritis, are the same as the Vedas, only they're given in terms that anyone can understand in this present age. Previously, of course, Vedic knowledge was not written down. Interestingly, it was more preservable and preserved when it was an oral tradition. Nowadays, because we're very distracted, we don't have the memories that we used to, Srila Vyasadeva made sure that the Vedas were in written form and passed down. Out of all the various Puranas, the Bhagavad Gita, of course, is called the Gita-upanishad. Sometimes people say it's both Shruti and Smriti, because it's directly spoken by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, it's giving an explanation of the Vedas, and it's also come after the original Vedas. This Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata, which you all know very well, because the country of India shuts down when the Mahabharata comes on television or anywhere else, right? And everyone watches. Of course, you'll notice that there are various versions of Mahabharata, because there's interpolations and other explanations why some of these things change over time. But the Bhagavad Gita has never changed, because over time, the various acharyas have kept close watch on the Bhagavad Gita. Every major acharya has given commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita has been closely watched. It's not changed in thousands of years. It's the same literature. It's considered by the great acharyas of the world, Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, Shankaracharya, to be the most important of literatures, because it's spoken by Krishna himself, and it gives a very clear exposition of the absolute truth that anyone can read and understand. The Bhagavad Gita ends with Krishna saying, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam braja ahang tang sarva papebhyo mokshayishami masuchaha. That means abandon all other processes to try to understand the Absolute and just surrender unto me. Do not worry, do not fear, do not hesitate. Masuchaha. From that position, the Srimad Bhagavatam begins. Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled by the great sage Srila Vyasadeva, and it's a discussion which takes place between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukdev Goswami. You know that Parikshit Maharaj was a great king. And one day when he went to the forest, uncharacteristically, he became very thirsty. So he went to the hermitage of the sage Shamika Rishi. He went there to ask for a little water as he was traveling through the forest. But the sage was in deep meditation and didn't even acknowledge the king. It's just as Satyadev Prabhu was saying, how do you feel when you're in need or when you try to express yourself and someone doesn't acknowledge you? I said I'd become angry. Parikshit Maharaj became angry. Of course, my anger is mundane. His is transcendental because it's related to Krishna's pastimes. And he picked up a dead snake nearby the hermitage and he indignantly wrapped it around the neck of Shamika Rishi and then walked out, got on his horse, went back to his kingdom. Nearby, the rumor spread that the king had come and insulted this Brahmana. And the very immature young son, Shringi, this is the son of Shamika Rishi, was nearby playing with his friends. And when he heard the rumor that his father had been insulted, he uttered a curse to impress his friends. 5,000 years ago, the Brahminical class was still in its purity. And therefore, whatever was uttered in the form of a curse or a blessing by a Brahmana would be effective. When Shamika Rishi cursed the faultless king, actually Parikshit Maharaj was a great pure devotee. He had been protected by Krishna even while he was in the womb. That's why his name is Parikshit, the examiner. He had seen Krishna in the womb because Krishna came to protect him from the Brahmastra of Ashvatthama. And since then, he was always trying to see, where is that beautiful person? So when Parikshit Maharaj heard of the curse of Shringi, instead of trying to counteract the curse, instead of trying to explain himself, instead of becoming a victim, he said, yes, this is the Lord's arrangement. If it wasn't for this curse, he said, I would not feel compelled to give up my materialistic attachments and take full shelter of Krishna. Shringi uttered a curse that the king would die from the bite of a snake bird. He had conjured this image of a bird and a snake together. And that by the fiery bite and poison of this snake bird, Parikshit Maharaj would die within 7 days. So Parikshit Maharaj got a WhatsApp message saying you're going to die in 7 days, and he accepted it. In his prayers, we find the quintessential attitude of an enlightened person. Parikshit Maharaj said, let the snake bird or whatever magical creature this Brahmana has conjured in his mind bite me. I don't mind. I just want to go on hearing about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Parikshit Maharaj left his kingdom and he went and sat on the bank of the Ganges. His full intention was to fix his mind on the Supreme and to understand very clearly what is my duty at the time of death. My friend Satyadev Prabhu, sitting next to me, was a paramedic for 20 years. And we spent many a day at my house in Burlingame where we had regular programs where we'd hear and chant. Every week, many devotees would come to our house and we'd read from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, have chanting. It was just like this, only a lot smaller. And Satyadev Prabhu would come from his work shift, which was quite arduous. Sometimes he had to work 2 days in a row without sleeping. But he'd always have some story about someone who had just left this world. In fact, just the other night, we were having Bhagavad Gita class, as we do every Wednesday here, starting at 6. And we were speaking about preparation for death, because Krishna talks about it in the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, attaining the Supreme. And Satyadeva Prabhu said something that I'll never forget. He said, I've seen hundreds, if not thousands of people firsthand leave their body. He said, I've never seen anyone ready for it. So Parikshit Maharaj, being a pure devotee and being the most intelligent of personalities, wanted to be ready to leave the world. And that was his full intention of sitting down tight on the bank of the Ganges. Now, in those days, the king was the sole ruler over everything. And that wasn't a bad thing, because at that time, up until the very beginning of Kali Yuga, which was 5,000 years ago, kings were extremely qualified. Not only did they come from a very pure bloodline, but they also took the full instruction from the brahmanas, or the enlightened class of society, who had nothing else to do and nothing at stake. Therefore, they could tell the truth, and they could use their full time to study the Shastra and impart perfect wisdom. So when Parikshit Maharaj sat down on the Ganges, it was big news. The king had given up his kingdom. Practically, you could feel how the people would lament that their great ruler now was near death. And he had given up his royal dress, he had put on a simple loincloth, and he sat down on that sandy bank of the Ganges. You can just imagine now our President of the United States walking out of the White House with an urge for enlightenment, sitting down on the bank of the Potomac. How the helicopters would be flying over. What is going on here? All the news channels would be there to see. How will he attain enlightenment in his last 7 days? And many people might come to give advice. Of course, all of you know, when you get a common cold, everyone will come and tell you how to cure it, because everyone's a doctor. And similarly, when Parikshit Maharaj sat on the bank of the Ganges, sages came from everywhere, teachers of every kind. And they sat around him, and they all had an opinion about how to attain perfection in this life. But then, the adolescent Shukadeva Goswami, who was the son of Srila Vyasadeva, appeared on the scene, naked. This was a symbol of his complete detachment from the world. In fact, all of you must know the story of Shukadeva Goswami, that it is written in the Shastra that he would not leave the womb of his mother, because he understood, as soon as I touch the material energy, I'll become attached. In fact, Kapila Dev in the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam goes into great detail about how when a child is in the womb and begins to develop, he or she comes to consciousness after a certain period and becomes aware of being in the womb. Oftentimes people romanticize being in the womb. Psychologists speculate, oh, it's a very warm and safe place. But according to Srimad Bhagavatam, those souls who become aware that they're there within the womb become also aware of the fact that they are separated from God and that they're caught in a cycle of birth and death. They also become aware of the fact that they've done this many times. And when they come out of the birth channel, they'll again forget that they're servants of the Lord. When my mother left this world, I was right by her side. The last 4 days, I was with her, talked to her about so many things. And the last day before she lost external consciousness, went into kind of coma, the last few hours of death, she said to me something I'll never forget. She said, I never want to have to do this again. That was not my mother speaking. That was not she was a sociologist, a scholar, and very much convinced that she knew how to deal with life. But in the last several days, she became a living entity with a perspective that I've done this many times, and here I go again. And similarly, within the womb of the mother, the living entity thinks, how have I gotten myself into this? How can I get out? Kapila Dev explains that when the living entity is forced out of the birth channel, the senses become externalized. The senses have a relationship with the sense objects in this world. In fact, the sense objects are embedded within the senses, and vice versa. And therefore, it's no wonder when we come out of the birth channel, suddenly the great rush of light and connection of our senses to the external world captures us again. And I become convinced that I'm this body. And the parents help out. They say, "Kuchi kuchi ku." They say, your new name. You have a new name. Your new name is Schnicky. And they give you a little name tag. And anybody asks you, who are you? You say, my name's Schnicky. That's all I know. So Shukadeva Goswami knew all this. He was an enlightened soul. In the womb of his mother, he said, I'm not coming out. I'm staying in here, because I want nothing to do with the world. This is his position. This is the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. He is not some person interested in the material world. He doesn't want anything from anyone. So his father Vyasadeva tried to convince him, come out of the womb. He wouldn't listen. After all, his father was a householder. Why should he listen? Krishna came all the way from Dwarka, told, come out. You won't get attached. It's okay. Finally, after 16 years in the womb, Shukadeva Goswami came out, and he immediately left home. As described in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, he walked away from his family, had no interest whatsoever. His great father, Srila Vyasadeva, after all, is an incarnation of the Lord. He called after him, come back, my son. But only the trees echoed in response to the bereaved father. Shukadeva Goswami went for the forest, his father following him in hot pursuit. He went by a bathing ghat where women were bathing without any clothes. When they saw Shukadeva Goswami, they didn't bother to cover themselves because they perceived that he was completely detached from the world. Whereas when Srila Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of God, came by, they immediately covered themselves, perceiving that this person sees some difference, whereas the other one doesn't. So this Shukadeva then went to the forest and was completely absorbed in the impersonal conception of God, detached from everything in the world. So how did he come back? His father, Srila Vyasadeva, sent disciples into the woods to recite verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Among them is a famous verse spoken by Sri Uddhava, the great pure devotee of the Lord, Harivasara. He's one of the three Harivasaras, one of the great devotees of the Lord. Another one is Govardhan Hill. Another one is Yudhishthira. So Uddhava said, Aho bakiyam stanakalakutam jigamsaya payad apyasadvi lebegatin datruchitam gatonyam gatam vayalum sharanam rajema. Who would take shelter of anyone else in this world other than Lord Krishna? He's so merciful that when the demoness Putana came with poison on her breast to kill the baby Krishna just after he had been born, she disguised herself as a nursemaid, as a beautiful maiden. She slipped past all the residents of the home of Krishna because she was so beautiful. She fit in. She looked just like everyone else in Vrindavan, and they thought she must be some goddess of fortune coming to see the baby. But she went in with this dastardly intention to kill the child Krishna, a representative of Kamsa. But when Krishna took her breast, he sucked out the poison, then the milk, then her life air. And she assumed her great demoness form and crashed to the ground, smashing the orchards of Kamsa nearby. But she achieved the destination of the great devotees. She went to the spiritual world, says the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Uddhava confirms. She attained the destination of a mother of Krishna in the spiritual sky. Why? Because Krishna didn't see the part about the poison. He didn't consider that she came there to kill him. She only saw that he picked him up like a little baby. A mother would pick up and nurse the baby. And he said, I'll take that part. Kamvada yalum sharanam brajema. Therefore Uddhava asked, who would take shelter of anyone else except for Lord Krishna? He's so kind, so merciful. He overlooks the faults of the conditioned souls. In fact, one prayer that we recite regularly, Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandho Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostute. In this verse, glorifying Krishna, he's known as Dina Bandho. He's the friend of the fallen. So Shukadeva Goswami, when he came out to the forest to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahman, when he heard this verse and several other verses selected by Srila Vyasadeva, his mind became attracted. How do you attract the mind of someone who has no attraction whatsoever to the material world? And this incident is the proof given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the very famous Atmarama verse, Atmaramas Chamunayo, Nigranta Apyurukrame. This verse states that even those who are Atmarama, they're completely perfect in self-realization. That is, they have no interest whatsoever in the material world. They have no material form that attracts them in this world. They're only absorbed in this self. Even those persons become attracted to Krishna Katha because it is the topmost of all spiritual vibrations, and it surpasses even the idea of self-realization. This is confirmed by Narada Muni in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where he says, Naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam, nashobate jnanam alam niranjanam, kutakpuna shashvara padramishvare. He says that if you're full in self-realization, completely self-realized soul, you understand the nature of the Atma. If you don't have a connection to Achyuta, everyone say Achyuta. Achyuta is the infallible Krishna. If you don't have Achyuta Bhava, say Achyuta Bhava. You have to have Achyuta Bhava, emotional attachment to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, is known as Achyuta. He says, Naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam nashobate jnanam alam niranjanam. If you don't have that, even if you have perfect self-realization, he said, it's not very nice. Nashobate, it's not beautiful, it doesn't look good. Kutakpana shashvara padram ishvare nacharpitam karma yarapya karanam. What to speak of material activities which are full of misery from beginning to end. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is a different vibration. It's not from the material world, and it surpasses even the idea of self-realization. This is brought up by Narada Muni in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavatam, Tad Vag Visargo Janataga Viplavo Yasmin Pratishlokam Abhadyavatyapi Namanyanantasya Yashonkitani Yat Shinvanti Gayanti Grananti Sadhava. He says, this Bhagavatam is a different creation. It's not from this world. This vibration comes from the spiritual world. It's describing the transcendental form of God. It's describing the relationship that God has with his most intimate devotees. This idea of God can be understood by those who are very deep thinkers. You'll find in the very famous book Actually, we're making it more famous. Up till now, it has not been that famous. But famous amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It's called the Brihat Bhagavatamrita. In this book, the Sri Brihat Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami begins with the mother of Parikshit named Uttara asking a question to her son. Now I'll bring you back for a minute. Parikshit Maharaj was on the bank of the Ganga. He had 7 days to live. He heard from Shukadev Goswami, the Srimad Bhagavatam, who had learned it from his father, Srila Vyasadeva, after he came back from the forest and enrolled himself in hearing the Bhagavatam and learning everything about it. Then he wandered off with no care in the world except to spread the mercy that he had received from his father through the Srimad Bhagavatam. By the Lord's arrangement, he met Parikshit Maharaj on the bank of the Ganges. He sat down, the sages who had assembled there, the greatest list of names you can imagine, of the most enlightened sages of the time. When they saw Shukadev Goswami enter the assembly, they all stood up out of respect. Because Shukadev was self-effulgent, everyone could understand, here is the person to speak to Parikshit Maharaj, to tell him what to do at the time of death. He spoke for 7 days, correct? There was a little time left before the snake bird bit Parikshit Maharaj. And in that sequence of time, that sliver of time, Uttara, who had been in the assembly but not close enough to hear everything that Shukadev had said, after all, they didn't have microphones back then, asked him, there's not much time before I lose you to this snake bird. And my question is, please tell me in the most abbreviated way that you possibly can, what did you hear? So Parikshit Maharaj then re-speaks the essence of the Bhagavatam in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita. But the point I want to make now is what Uttara asks him at the beginning of the Brihat Bhagavatamrita. She reasons that there are a certain class of devotees. They're very rare. In fact, the Bhagavatam itself says, Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayana. There are millions of sages and liberated people, but there are very few who are Narayana parayana. They're 100% pure devotees. They have nothing to ask from God. They only want to give their service to God with nothing in return. She said, there must be a special place for these devotees that's even beyond what's available for the self-realized. After all, these Narayana Parayanas, they're so sold out to the lotus feet of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in loving service, that he must have a special place in which he reciprocates with these particular devotees. And Parikshit Maharaj's interest was greatly piqued by hearing this question from his very exalted mother, Uttara. And therefore, he began to speak the story in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita that takes us from the material world through the various layers of the material world, past the material world, into the Vaikuntha planets, past the Vaikuntha planets, all the way to Goloka Vrindavan. This Goloka, the topmost planet in the spiritual world, is larger than all of the spiritual planets put together. Although, when you go to Vrindavan in the spiritual world, which you will when you read the Srimad Brihat Bhagavatamrita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll find that it's a small place. It doesn't seem like a vast, overwhelming expanse of area, expansive area, but it's home. That's what we mean when we say we go back home, back to Godhead. There Krishna lives in his Nija Dham, his very personal Dham, and he has relationships with his most intimate devotees there. Relationships in friendship, parental relationships, relationships of lovers. And all of the devotees there are overwhelmed by a sense of loving service to the Lord, trying to please him in every way, and live in eternal bliss and rapture in that planet with unlimited affection for the Lord. So this was the question Uttara asked, and Parikshit explained after he heard from Shukadeva Goswami about Krishna in the spiritual world and how every one of us has a relationship with him. In fact, the very purpose of life that he heard about from Shukadeva, at that time he was leaving his body, was that every one of us is meant to reconnect to Krishna in the spiritual world. And that Krishna wants us to come back home, back to Godhead, more than we ourselves can desire. In the book Brihat Bhagavatamrita, there's a story of a young Brahmin who comes from a very poor family. He's uneducated, but he has a dream from the family deity, Kamaksha Devi. It's a deity of Durga. His family worshipped Durga. Durga, of course, is a servant of Krishna, and she, in a dream, revealed to this Brahmin from Jyotishtapur that here is a mantra. You chant this mantra, and it will take you back to your original home and fulfill your heart's desire. And although he didn't know what a mantra was, and he didn't know what was in the mantra, out of gratitude he began to chant it. And chanting that mantra led him to meet his guru, Gopakumar. And Gopakumar told his story, which was very similar, of how he was a young cowherd boy living in Govardhan. And with his friends every day, he would go to tend to the calves, and they would see every day this elderly sage who would walk in the pasturing grounds crying. All the boys thought he was a little odd, except Gopakumar was attracted to him. And he used to bring him milk goods, some yogurt, butter, he would give to the sage. And one day this sage called him and said, I have something for you, you come with me. He went near the Jamuna, and there this great Vaishnav sage gave Gopakumar a mantra. He said, this is my gift to you. But before Gopakumar could ask him, what is a mantra? And how does it work? The great sage fainted in ecstasy, because he was so absorbed in love for Krishna. When he heard the mantra, he was overwhelmed and he fainted on the ground. And then when he stood back up again, in love for God, he was bewildered and simply wandered off. And this young cowherd, Gopakumar, was thinking, did I do something wrong? Did I offend him? What happened? Where did he go? Nonetheless, he took the mantra as a gift from this unusual personality and began to chant the mantra. And you'll find as you go through the pages of the Brihat Bhagavatamrita that step by step the mantra takes Gopakumar closer to his home in the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. It's a very big book, and he goes on a long, circuitous journey to reach Goloka Vrindavan. But when he does finally go to the spiritual world, which he achieves with the final advice of Narada Muni, for him to go back to Vraja, that Vraja on earth, the one we're familiar with in Vrindavan, Krishna's birthplace. This most sacred place is the place that he went and performed Harinam Kirtan, the chanting of the holy names. And from there, he was transferred directly to Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world. When he first arrives in Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world, he can't perceive any difference between the Goloka on earth, or the Vraja on earth, and Vraja in the spiritual world. In fact, there is no difference, except that our acharyas say the Vraja on earth is even more important than the Vraja in the spiritual world, because Krishna performs his very human-like pastimes here on this earth, which is what we're celebrating today. How Krishna appears, of course, it seems as if he appears outside of Vrindavan, but Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. Actually, he's born to Devaki and Vasudeva, and then he's carried back to Vrindavan, apparently. But according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, this is a very confidential teaching given by the great acharyas of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, that Yashoda actually gives birth to a boy and a girl. One is Krishna of Vrindavan. The other is the internal potency that we find later, Yogamaya. And when Vasudeva brings this Vasudeva Krishna from Mathura into Vrindavan, the Vasudeva Krishna enters into the body of Krishna, and he takes the girl back to the prison. When Gopakumar goes to the spiritual world, he sees what he saw on the earthly Vrajadam. The trees look the same, the sky looks the same, there's people. And then he sets out to find out where is the home of Nanda Maharaj, because there he knows he'll find Krishna, in Nanda's home. So he begins to ask the residents there, "Excuse me, where's the house of King Nanda?" But the first persons he inquires from don't answer him. They don't say a word. And he thinks, that's odd. Maybe they're being rude. And he goes on from there to meet many more residents of Vraja. And as is revealed to him by one of the devotees there, it's the afternoon time in Vrajadam, in Goloka. And every one of the residents there in Vrindavan is so overwhelmed with separation because Krishna leaves in the morning to go to the pasturing grounds. And while he's gone, in this intense feeling of separation from Krishna, after all, even the cowherd boys who accompany Krishna into the forest cannot bear to miss seeing Krishna even for a fraction of a second if Krishna walks behind a tree. And they miss seeing his form even for a millisecond. They become greatly agitated in separation. What to speak of all the residents of Vrindavan who are paralyzed because of separation from Krishna as he's in the pasturing grounds. So when Gopakumar enters into Vrindavan and finds that Krishna has gone to the forest, now the evening twilight is coming in. And there's a cloud in the sky. And that cloud is the dust raised by the hooves of the calves and the cows that Krishna and his friends are tending in the forest of Vrindavan. And seeing this cloud, the people of Vrindavan become jubilant because they know that Krishna is coming back. The birds, which had gone quiet, begin to sing again. The water begins to flow. As in separation, even the water of the Jamuna stops, or sometimes goes in reverse. Actually, sometimes birds in the sky become stunned and they stop where they're flying. They can't move. But the whole of Vrindavan becomes alive now that Krishna is coming back. And Gopakumar, coming back to the spiritual world, now beholds Krishna and all his friends and calves coming out of the forest towards the village of Vrindavan. Krishna notices that Gopakumar has come. He runs ahead of all of his cowherd friends and all the calves. And he embraces Gopakumar in ecstasy. You've come back to me. said, I've waited so long for you to come back home, back to the spiritual world. And Krishna, in ecstasy that his devotee has come back to the spiritual world to serve him, faints in ecstasy. Tears are coming from his eyes. They're making the ground muddy around where he's fallen to the ground. And now the people of Vrindavan are shocked and disturbed because they think, who is this person? This might be one of Kamsa's wizards that's come here to kill Krishna, to harm him in some way. And now Balaram, who's the most intimate servant of Krishna, comes forward and he sees the whole situation. He takes the hand of Gopakumar and shows how to lovingly remove the dust from Krishna's transcendental body as he's fallen there in ecstasy. And with a smile on his face, he assures everyone that everything's okay. When Krishna comes back to his external consciousness, he takes Gopakumar by the hand in a very loving way. And he says, we'll never be separated ever again. And he takes Gopakumar back to his home. And they're never separated again. The meaning of Janmashtami is to reconnect to our original divine friend, Krishna, who says in the Bhagavad Gita, Suridam Sarvabhutanam, that I'm your most intimate friend. And the Srimad Bhagavatam makes that real for us. In fact, this Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be the incarnation of Krishna in Kali Yuga. Krishne swadamo bhagate dharma ganadi bisaha kalo nasha drishamesha purarnoko dunodita. After Lord Krishna, who so kindly appeared in this world, departed for his own abode, the Srimad Bhagavatam simultaneously appeared to bring light to the world and restore religious principles. This book is the incarnation of Krishna. The Puranas describe how the first and second cantos are the lotus feet of Krishna. How the middle cantos are his torso. The 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is the smiling face of Krishna. The 11th canto, the crown on his beautiful head. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the sound incarnation of Krishna. And in the very beginning, Sutta Goswami, who's explaining the power of the Srimad Bhagavatam to the sages of Naimisaranya, says, Shrinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyan taksto hibadrani vidunoti suhritsatam. Lord Sri Krishna, who is the Paramatma, the super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the hearts of the devotees who relish its messages when they're properly heard and chanted. Just by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, one reawakens one's original relationship with Krishna. Vikriditam vrajadaburbir hamcha Vishnu shradhanvito nashinuyadata yuvarna yedya Bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhya kamam hridrogam ashvapahinot yavcharena dira. When anyone hears the playful pastimes of Krishna with his friends and lovers in this most exalted planet, Goloka Vrindavan, which are recounted in the Srimad Bhagavatam, then the dread disease of the heart, lust, which forces me to serve the bad masters of my senses in this world, to drink poison, even though I know it's not good for me, I take it anyway. The propensities for self-limiting beliefs, for the unwanted desires within my heart are completely purified by hearing these stories from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, when the founder and acharya of our organization, the ISKCON organization, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, received an instruction from his spiritual master that you leave India and you come to the Western world and you teach the message of Krishna so that everyone can understand it. That instruction was impossible. It was not possible for a person in an advanced age with no resources whatsoever to come and spread a message throughout the whole world. No connections in this world, in the Western side. Srila Prabhupada, sitting in Vrindavan, contemplated, how will I fulfill the order of my spiritual master? He used to go regularly to the home of Advaita Acharya. This is in Mayapur. That place, Advaita Acharya, prayed for the advent of Lord Chaitanya to come to this world. That's also an impossible thing. How do you get God to appear in the world? Well, Advaita Acharya figured it out. He found in scripture that if you offer Ganges water and Tulsi to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's so grateful that he sells himself to that devotee. Finding that verse, he took Ganges water and Tulsi leaves and he was offering them to his Shalagram Shila, and with loud cries, he was asking for the Lord to appear in this world. So Srila Prabhupada went to that very place and he made his appeal to the Supreme Lord. Please let me fulfill the order of my spiritual master to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Let people know that the purpose of life is not simply to eat, sleep, mate and defend, then die, and come out in another womb. He sat in Vrindavan for 11 years, contemplating how he would make it around the world to spread the Krishna conscious movement, or even to America, which was his first goal. There he began to write the Srimad Bhagavatam, commentaries and translations. He had completed the first canto, and with that in hand, he felt ready to come to the Western world with no other resources. No money, no friends, only one sponsor who didn't think he was actually going to come. Mr. Agarwal, I think he recently passed away, just a couple weeks ago. His son, Gopal Agarwal, he had given a sponsorship to many different people, sages and sadhus who said they were going to come. Nobody came, but Prabhupada came, and they were shocked when he showed up. And what did he come with? He came on a freighter. He had no special room. He had 2 heart attacks on the way over. He tolerated. There was no doctor. He brought only Srimad Bhagavatam. Cases full. When the ship took off, it went through the tip down by Colombo. There he watched as those trunks of his Srimad Bhagavatam, which he had painstakingly put together, were loaded on the ship. And the Scindia Steamship Company, he was friends with the owner of the company. She had very reluctantly given him a seat on that ship, a room. So when he came to America, that's what he had. No money, only books. And he told the customs agents, they said, "Are you selling these?" People ask us that all the time. "Are you selling these?" And he said, no, not for sale, just making them available. And they let him through with 200 copies of his first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And on the boat, he wrote in his diary that this Srimad Bhagavatam will transform the world. This is what will re-spiritualize human society, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And during his time spreading Krishna consciousness movement all over the world, which is an epic story, which you can read about in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, which was a biography of Srila Prabhupada. How did he do it? In fact, he made it into Newsweek's article about people who had, in past 60 years old, had become extraordinarily successful in the world. He was on that list. So he wrote in his diary that this will re-spiritualize the world. And when he came and was spreading the movement, managing the movement, opening centers like this all over the world, simultaneously he cut back on his sleep. Only 2-3 hours a day to have time to go on with his translations of Srimad Bhagavatam. He made it all the way to the 10th canto, 13th chapter, Brahma Vimohana Lila. But having the foresight that he might leave the world before he finished the Bhagavatam, he stopped during his translation of the 3rd canto and made a summary study of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam called Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which tells in detail all the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. So, the process of Krishna consciousness has a great tradition. We're following in the footsteps of the likes of Shukadeva Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, the great Acharyas, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Shankaracharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who have all exalted the truth that the purpose of life is to remember God and to reestablish our relationship with Him and go back to Him. So this celebration that's been going on all day long here is no small thing. First of all, I've noticed there's a lot of us here in Silicon Valley who are worshiping Krishna. When I took a short break in the afternoon around 3 o'clock, and then when I was walking back to the temple, I thought Kumbh Mela was happening here. I mean, nobody knows how to throw a party like Indians. I mean, Kumbh Mela, the big festivals of India, people really know how to glorify Krishna and all come together. So that's happening here. It's not insignificant. Bringing our energies together to remember what is the purpose of life, but not only that, how to give it to other people. That's the great duty of those especially who have taken their birth in Bharatvarsha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself said, Bharata Bhumiti Hoila Manasya Janma Jar, Janma Sartak Kari Para Upakar. If you're born in Bharat, you have a special responsibility. Don't mind. I'm just telling you what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. He said, your special responsibility, because you're born in that holy place, is to give everybody else in the world the opportunity to learn about Krishna. Let people read the Bhagavad Gita. Let people hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. He told all of you, become a guru. Every one of you, you have to become a guru. You have to become full of this knowledge and then give it to other people. And that's what most pleases Krishna. He says so in the Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter. Nachatasman manusheshu. He says, no one pleases me more than those who learn the Bhagavad Gita and teach it to others. So this is a great occasion to remember what pleases Krishna most and to make a dedication to Him. And for those of you who have heard of Srimad Bhagavatam and not yet entered into it, I recommend run, don't walk. Get the Srimad Bhagavatam. Take it home. Put it in your house and read a little bit to your family every day. At least look at the pictures. And also a reminder that on September 24th, there's a very special astrological configuration and an opportunity. It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself and also in the Kurma Purana, one of the oldest literatures in the world, the Matsya Purana, that those who give away the Srimad Bhagavatam on a golden throne, hey, I just happen to have a golden throne here, during the month of Bhadra, during the Purnima, get the great gift of going back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, all around the world, we've mobilized in India, in Europe, all over America, for this special day, Bhadra Purnima, September 24th. When you give away a Srimad Bhagavatam to someone else on that day, greatest charity you can give to anybody, this book. The giver gets the reward of going back home, back to Godhead. This is something to consider very carefully because it's directly in Scripture. In verse 12th canto, 13th chapter, 13th verse, if I'm not mistaken. Can you look it up, please? Grab a 12th canto. I'll read you the verse. And now, before we go on for more chanting and remembering Krishna, we'll take some reflections, anything that you heard so far that's stuck in your mind. From this monologue, or from Satyadev Prabhu's talk, or for anything that you've heard or seen here at the festival tonight. And we have a microphone, so we'll pass it back to you, so you can say. Reflect. Yes. I hope we have microphones left. Did we burn them all out? See if you can find a hot one. That one works. He wants it. Right there.
Thank you. So Satyadev Prabhu mentioned about his own personal experience of so many people leaving, but not even one person was ready to leave. And then on the other hand, of course, we heard the story of 7 days. How about rest of us? Any quick tips on, we can't be fully ready, but getting there?
Well, first of all, remember how many days we have to leave this world. Parikshit Maharaj had 7 days. How many do we have? We also have 7. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, and Monday. We don't have a warranty, and we didn't sign a lease. You didn't put a little baby footprint on a lease when you were born saying how long you get to be in this body. No one gets that. So the Srimad Bhagavatam says you should prepare yourself. And Krishna says, can you turn the gain down, please? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, read the 8th chapter. It's all about attaining the Supreme. And he says there, you have to practice while you have the chance. First he says, Yang vapi smaran bhavam tajat yante kalevaram tam tam evaita konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. And that is whatever you're attracted to when you leave this body, that you'll attain without fail. Krishna gives this as a definitive statement. Then he goes on to say, Abhyasa yogi yuktena chetasa nanyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partanu chintayan. And that is that while you have the chance, while you're conscious of your opportunity, you should practice as much as possible. And the best kind of practice, as confirmed by Srila Prabhupada in his purport to this verse, is that while you, first of all, the verse says, while you're working in the world, you should practice remembering Krishna. And then Srila Prabhupada writes that if you practice chanting Hare Krishna while you're doing everything else that you're doing in your life, this will give you the wherewithal to remember Krishna. And as far as practice goes, later in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Prayana kale manasachalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva ruvar madhye pranam avesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. He said that yogi practices and therefore is able to fix his mind at the top of the head between the 2 eyebrows and leave the body in full consciousness. And he uses the phrase yoga balena. And there in the purport, Prabhupada explains that unless you've practiced throughout your life, through thick and thin, to remember Krishna in all kinds of adverse situations, then you won't have yoga balena, or the strength of yoga, when you leave this body. So it's highly recommended by Krishna that you take time to practice in this lifetime. And how much should you practice? You should practice a lot. Practice a lot. while you have the chance. Other reflections. Anything you heard that you can reflect back. Yes, Akarnath Prabhu. See, even give him a good mic.
Hare Krishna.
There's smoke coming out of these mics now.
So I was thinking that, Prabhu, you mentioned, and also Sachidev mentioned the verse that Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evang Yo Veti Tatvataha. And we're talking about Takva Dehang Punar Janma Naiti Mam Uti Sorjuna. You come to Krishna, you don't have to take birth again in this world if you know the transcendental nature of his appearance. We're celebrating his appearance day, and also his activities when he's having his pastimes in this world. And you might say, oh, that sounds easy, you just have to know it's transcendental. But tatvataha, how do we actually really know it, like scientifically, thoroughly, understand it, how it's transcendental, and what does it mean for it to be transcendental? And so you're saying we have to practice a lot, we have to have the strength of yoga, otherwise it would, so to really know it. And I thought it was very beautiful, your discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam and how important it is for us that Krishna's appeared in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, and that for us to study Srimad Bhagavatam, and that Srila Prabhupada actually predicted that this would be for the re-spiritualization of the society, that this would be that the Bhagavatam would be the medicine that re-spiritualizes society. So.
Yeah, the Karnath Prabhu, he's a great scholar. He's an attorney, but he doesn't like his work so much. He likes to read Bhagavatam instead. And he's always said to me, since I've known him, that his greatest desire is to see that the intelligentsia of society appreciates what Srimad Bhagavatam is. Actually, there's no better language than Sanskrit. This is just a fact. I'm not giving a value judgment. I'm giving a statement of fact. As far as languages in the world go, it's the most refined and eloquent of all languages, bar none. This was discovered by the early invaders who came to India from England, who thought that they would undermine the culture of India by showing the heathens there how elementary their culture was. When they discovered Sanskrit, they were nonplussed. And one of the scholars who came wrote an article that shocked the Western world, and that was that Sanskrit is the most sophisticated of all languages. And now when you get into the Srimad Bhagavatam, even amongst all the Vedas and all the Puranas, the Srimad Bhagavatam's language is the most eloquent of all. This indicates a culture beyond all other cultures. So make no mistake about it, the Srimad Bhagavatam is not some ordinary literature, and it's not something that we're simply espousing because we happen to be followers in some way. It is something that can be evaluated in a scholarly way and understood that this is the most eloquent of all scriptures. So Akarnath Prabhu's deep desire is to see that the intelligent people all over the world come to know the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. What is the poetical weight of the Srimad Bhagavatam? What is the philosophical value of Srimad Bhagavatam? That should be known all over the world. And part of the duty of all of us who know about this culture is to preserve it. Actually, literature, according to the late great scholar, Indologist, who was the most respected in his field, Joseph T. O'Connell. He was a Canadian, but he was the foremost scholar of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the world, in the secular world, in the academic world, I should say. In a paper he wrote called Institutionalizing Prema, he said that an institution is a means by which we transfer our culture across time and geography. He said culture means that which is real, right, and valuable to us. And he said there's ways in which we spread our culture. Of course, we start these centers like we have here. And of course, mostly people who already know about Krishna consciousness are here tonight. We don't see a lot of Westerners here. But one of the other ways, he said, to spread this culture is through the institution of literature. Books are an institution unto themselves. And he argues in his paper that the distribution of literature is the most valuable of all institutions because it's most effective in transporting our culture across time and geography. So preserving the Srimad Bhagavatam by keeping it in your own home. In fact, I know some people that have big homes, and in every room they have a television. Have you ever seen this? Have you? You're laughing, so maybe you have. So what I propose is that everyone have a Srimad Bhagavatam set in every room. That's a better idea. Other reflections? Yes.
Well, I was just listening to your the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which tells Bhadra Purnima. I was also discussing with a Chinese person about this the Srimad Bhagavatam and this 12, 13. So when they hear about the number 13, they jumped actually because he started saying about that in China there is no 13th floor, there is no 13th kind of elevators number and all kind of problems he was stating about. I said, well, that's why we have to depend on this 13th, because this 13th tells how to overcome the real misfortune of the 13th. But it was good conversations to know and reflect the particular verses in the number.
Yes, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Shubha Shubha Palereva Mokshashe Karma Bandhanai. And that the devotee who takes shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam transcends that which is auspicious and inauspicious. Devotees don't care for auspicious or inauspicious in this world because they're taking shelter of Krishna in all circumstances. Other reflections? What did you hear? Yes, Kanka.
Thank you, Prabhu. It was a really wonderful, so inspiring class. I was really impressed when you were talking about the Bhagavatamrita and how Gopakumar, when Krishna saw him, he fainted and was crying. Tears were coming out of Krishna's eyes that created mud. So it's an example of how much Krishna wants us to come back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada used to say, you take one step towards Krishna, he will take 10 towards you. So it was such a great example to hear that story. And I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Is when I had His Holiness Keshav Bharti Maharaj is an old friend of mine. We joined the Krishna consciousness movement around the same time, 1973. I think he joined in 1972, about 6 months or a year before I came there. And we had been friends ever since. We have been friends ever since. And when he was one of the editors for the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And so he came and camped out in our house in Burlingame. Always good to keep a sadhu in your house. That's topmost recommendation. You'll never be the same. He would sit there, and of course editors have to go over and over again through the literature. So I set him up in the guest room, but I gave him a microphone that had speakers around the house. So when he was reading the pages, the manuscript of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we could hear it everywhere in the house. And I just remember the effect that it had on me, that I could see for myself that I was noticeably changed. Not only that, he would hold readings in the evening. And some of us, devotees would come over, a few devotees from different places. And I noticed how moved they were just by hearing the literature. It was so powerful. So if you have the wherewithal to organize your life in such a way that you can hear these literatures, you'll see for yourself that you change. for the better. You develop love for Krishna in your heart. Not that it's worked on me to that degree, but even the preliminary touch of the Srimad Bhagavatam and hearing these literatures brings out a sense of knowledge, of detachment from the world. So Rupa Goswami gives the most important advice in his book called the Upadeshamrita. It's the Nectar of Instruction. This is a book that we widely distribute here in Silicon Valley. It's a short guide, a primer, that shows how to practice bhakti yoga. And in that book, he writes a verse, Tanama rupa charitari sukirtananu smrityo kramena rasana manasi niyoja tishtam vraje tananuragi jananugami kalam nayeda kilam itupadesha saram. Here he says, in this essential book, this is the cream of all advice. But we've run out of time, so I can't tell you. You want to hear it? Oh, all right. He says, the essence of all advice is you should organize your time so that you can nicely hear, chant, and remember about Krishna 24 hours a day. If you can do that, then he says, step by step, you will enter into the spiritual world just by that one act. And some more encouraging information from our acharyas, because we believe in what Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita, acharyopasanam. He said, worship the acharyas. Everyone else does it, even in science. How much more it's effective in the spiritual realm. So the acharyas tell us that the purpose of life is to concentrate on Krishna, organize one's life around this basic principle of hearing about Krishna, and that step by step one will enter into the spiritual world. Other reflections? Yes. Pass Mataji the microphone. Namaskar.
सबसे पहले तो मैं आपको सादर प्रणाम बोलना चाहती हूँ और आज मैं सिखिज़्म को बिलोंग करती हूँ. आई एम बॉर्न ऑफ अमृतसर एंड आई यूज्ड टू गो टू माय गुरुद्वारास एंड टुडे आई हैव seen so many Bhagat of Krishna ji, and I have learned much about Krishna Lord. अगर मैं ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਹਾਂ कि एक शायर ने शेर लिखा, हज़ारों साल नरगिस अपनी बेनूरी पे रोती है, बरसों में बड़ी मुश्किल से होता है चमन में दीदावर पैदा. सो स्वामी जी, यू आर इन माई आईज, यू आर दीदावर पर्सन. और मैंने बहुत कुछ सीखा है.
So she said
तो
that
मैं अलवीज़ो मंदिर में जाती हूँ, तो आज मैं सुबह सुबह उधर गई तो एक भी भक्त नहीं था. तो आई वॉज एस्टॉनिश्ड तो आज तो जन्माष्टमी है. तो फिर मेरे को उधर स्वामी जी ने बताया कि हमने कल ही कर ली. फिर इस बेटे को बोला, ये उधर से ही आए हैं, ये बैठे हुए हैं, इन्होंने मेरे को बोला कि उधर जाओ, तुम देखोगे कितना सेट इंतज़ाम है, बहुत बड़ी रौनक होगी. मैं 2 बजे की आई हूँ और मेरी आंखों के सामने हज़ारों भक्त गुजरे हैं. इतना फ्लड मैंने आज देखा है.
He'll translate.
पहले कभी नहीं देखा है. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Not everyone speaks Hindi. Okay. Hare Krishna. Prabhu?
so initially she said that that you are a deliverer over here, and she went to the another temple yesterday and she didn't find a single devotee out there, so she was kind of astonished what's happening. Today is Janmashtami and no one is out here. So she found one of the devotee over here and who said, why don't you come to ISKCON, Silicon Valley? There you're going to see how the Janmashtami is going to be getting celebrated over there. You will see how perfect the arrangement is. I mean, that's a kudos to all the devotee community. And how systematic and the devotion you're going to be observing out here. So she came over here since 2 p.m. in the noon, and she's been over here since that time, and she's all immersed and been very much appreciative about the total environment and the crowd which is passing through over here, and she just loves it.
Couple more reflections. Anything that you heard so far, realizations from the festival? We'd like to hear from all of you. Please, go ahead and speak up. It's a family atmosphere here. Feel free. Yes, please.
While telling the story, you said spiritual Vrindavan. Can you please emphasize on spiritual Vrindavan and what do you mean particularly with spiritual nature of...
The spiritual nature of Vrindavan?
Yeah.
Well, Krishna confirms, first of all, to start with the foundation of this idea and philosophy in the Bhagavad Gita, that there are two kinds of energies we observe in this world, two categories. He says, Bhumirapo anulo vayu kam mano bhudir evacha ahankara ityame binna prakritirashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are the gross and subtle elements of the material world. He says these are inferior energies. And then he says, Aparayamitasthanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam darite jagat. Above these lower energies is the higher energy of the living entity, the soul. The soul is categorically different energy from matter. Matter does not come together and create a soul. This is a misconception of the modern scientific concocted world. Matter and spirit both emanate from the Supreme Lord, but they're categorically different energies. And when we leave the body, the superior energy leaves the body, and then the body falls apart. So starting with this idea of various kinds of energy. In fact, even in the Vishnu Purana, it is said, Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta, Kshetra Gyakya Tata Para, Avidya Karma Samyanya, Tritiya Shakti Rishite. It gives three categories of energy. It says there's the spiritual world, the material world, and the living entity. We're called tatasta, or marginal, because we can go between the material and spiritual worlds. We can live either place, because we have independence to choose which place to live. So there is a spiritual world which is not fettered by the problems of the material world. In other words, there's no birth, death, old age, and disease. Anything that's created will be destroyed. We're living in a created world. Our body's created, and therefore it'll be destroyed at some point. The Silicon Valley is created at a particular time. And I hate to break it to everybody, but it's going to be destroyed too. Everything that's created will be destroyed. But the spiritual world, Krishna says, Parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yastat sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim paramam. Sorry. Parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yaksak sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu navinashyati. He says, the spiritual world's eternal. It's never created. It's always been there. It always will be there. And even when everything in this world is destroyed, the spiritual world will go on. Now, the very interesting point about how there's a spiritual world, yes, we can understand categories of energy. There's a spiritual world where Krishna lives eternally. But how is it that the spiritual world manifests in the material world? This is called dham, or tirtha. The word tirtha in Sanskrit means a kind of bridge, an entryway. You can go from the material world into the spiritual world while you're here. And I'll give you the example my spiritual master used to give. He said it's like it's like what's it called? The embassy, like an embassy. Now, I had experience in an embassy in Calcutta. When I was a young man, brahmachari, I used to spend a lot of time in India. I lived in Calcutta for some time. I really like Calcutta. I like Bengalis in general. But in any case, I was in Calcutta, and then I had a problem with my visa, and I had a problem with my ticket and everything like that. So I had to go to the American embassy. I was already absorbed in India and Calcutta. I thought I wasn't Bengali, I think. So I went to the American embassy. I went inside, and as soon as I opened the door, I saw the U.S. Marines. Not only did I see the U.S. Marines, but I saw Arrowhead water. And every food stuff behind the glass, that you know, the impenetrable glass, was all American stuff. I said, that's amazing. How do you do that? They said, we import everything from America. when you go in there, you're no longer in Calcutta. Even though when you step outside, you're back in Calcutta. So these dhams, Krishna manifests in the material world, they're like embassies. And there we can actually enter into the spiritual world. The bhava, or the feeling of the spiritual world, is there for anyone who goes there under proper guidance and follows the system of bhakti yoga. They'll be able to connect to the dham. For instance, at Govardhan Hill, do you know this Govardhan Hill? Krishna lifted it with his little pinky and held it up for 7 days. Do you know that, right? If you know that, say Hare Krishna. So now, Govardhan Hill is an eternal sacred place. Why do millions of people come to Govardhan every year? They walk around. You could stay. I stay there for a month every year in Kartik. And sometimes I look out the gate from our ashram and I watch the thousands and thousands of people walking by on Govardhan, barefoot, walking around and around, 24 kilometers a day. And I think, like, why are they doing this with such enthusiasm? And I found out why. Because there's a current of spiritual energy that runs under Govardhan Hill. And when you walk on that place, it comes up through your feet and into your heart. And you become purified. What I'm saying is you have to go to the Dham to experience it for yourself. It's a transcendental experience if you go there with proper guidance and your eyes are trained with knowledge when you go to the Dham. When the material world is destroyed, the Dham in the material world simply absorbs into the spiritual world. This is described in the scriptures. And when the material world's manifest again, then that Dham again becomes manifest. It's eternal here, and it's eternal in the spiritual world. And this is a portal through which one can transfer oneself to the spiritual world. In fact, just some other good news. You're in the mood, right? Yes. Yeah. We're in the middle planetary systems. If you read the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll find a great scheme. The universe is perfectly engineered, and there's different sections to it. You know, Om Bhurabhuvasva, everyone knows that. So there are various realms here in the material world, and that's all described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the various realms, various levels of consciousness where different living beings live. We live right in the middle, exactly in the middle of the universe. In fact, Naimisaranya, the place where the sages heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from Sutta Goswami, is the exact center. It's like a hub of a big wheel. Now, what's the importance of that? How do you get out of a building? On the ground floor. We're not in the basement. That's the lower planets. We're not in the upper levels in the penthouse. That's the heavenly planets. We're right at the ground floor where you can walk out and go back to God at it whenever you feel like it. This is described in the Shastra. And the place, the actual gateway, is through Vrindavan, the place of Krishna's eternal pastimes. Therefore, the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially worship this Vrindavan. It's mentioned Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had various tenets. Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavidu Vargena Vokalpita. He says that, what's the first line? Araja Bhagavan Vrajeshatanayasta Dhamma Vrindavana Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavidu Vargena Vokalpita. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumarta Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatradara Napara. Says there that the Dham of Vrindavan is exactly the same as Krishna, no difference. So we worship the Dham as the same as Krishna. And anyone who does that will experience what the Dham is and be able to enter into it. Does that help? Okay. And now we're counting down the minutes till midnight. All the stalwarts are here. So many other wonderful people came. Isn't it nice to see how many people came here today? We don't have the numbers, but I checked in the afternoon. It was over 6,000, and that's before we started the evening program. So I can guess that it was well over 10,000 people came here tonight to this little place. And I don't know if you know the history of ISV, but we started in a little house on New Jersey Avenue in San Jose. And the neighbors said, wait, hold it, hold it. You can't have a Hare Krishna thing here. We had these deities in the living room in a house, a tiny little house. And the householder devotees lived in that house with the deities and did the worship there. We had a Sunday program until they kicked us out. And then we moved to a little storefront around the corner. People would walk down this little strip mall, and there was a place to get your hair cut. There was a pizza place where you could fix your broken computer. And then if you walk one window further, people would look in all the time and they go, what? They see Shri Radha Madan Mohan through the window in a strip mall, a tiny little strip mall, and they'd see the deities there. We had several Janmashtamis there, only we had to go across the street to the karate studio in order to accommodate all the devotees. And guess what? We got kicked out of that place too. Then we moved to a little commercial building over on, what's the name of that street? Bascom. We were on Bascom for 7 years. When our temple leaders saw that place and they picked it out and they said, come look. So I went and looked. I said, you can't move in here. This place is terrible. There's no space. It won't work. And they said, there's no choice. We're kicked out of the other place. But somehow or other, we made it work for 7 years. And boy, did we make it work. We learned how to take a small space and make it big. We tarped out the parking lot. We asked the car detailing place if we could use their garage to use it for Janmashtami. We got permission. Finally, across the street, we found there was a fencing studio, this kind of fencing, where they didn't have much paraphernalia, and we got to use that for 2 years until we got kicked out of that place too. And finally, we got this place, which we bought. And the day we moved in here, and we had a big celebration, several people came up and tapped me on the shoulder and they said, Vaish, we need a bigger place. I said, thanks a lot. But it's a fact. We're a growing movement. Our intention is to have a world-class facility here in Silicon Valley. This has been my heart's desires from the beginning, but my spiritual master said, you can't grow fast, you have to grow slow. And we've always had the philosophy amongst our team of devotees, our family of devotees here, some of them who have grown up here, that some of them are 16 and they grew up in this environment from the very beginning. And we've always had the philosophy that if you use the space you have properly, then Krishna will give you more. And so we're still aspiring for that. Our impetus for today's celebration was to be the most welcoming place here in Silicon Valley. When people walked into this environment, we wanted them to feel that this was the friendliest place on earth. That was our goal. And we wanted also, I said, the most important thing to me is that the restrooms are the cleanest restrooms in Silicon Valley. To me, that's a sign that Krishna may give you a bigger facility. And if we can't do these kinds of things and take full advantage of the space that we have, we don't deserve a bigger space. But it is our heart's desire to continue expanding the Krishna consciousness movement under the protection of our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who never, ever thought small. He always thought big. And so when someone told me about Apple's new place that they built, it cost a mere $5 billion for that little campus. I said, we want one better than that for Krishna, for Janmashtami, and all of you are invited. So it's heartfelt that we're all sitting here together into the wee hours of the night waiting for this Janmashtami celebration at midnight. And it's not lost on us that you are such stalwarts, that you've come here to sit tight, to be part of this celebration. And we're so grateful to all of you for coming here all this way. Thank you very much. Go Premanande Haribo. And now we're going to have a little chanting And in about 10, 15 minutes, there's some announcements that are going to be really nice because they're out of gratitude for many people who helped put on the festival and some opportunities that are coming up. Does that sound okay? Is everyone all right? Okay. Shall we? What do you want to sing? I'm at a loss. Hare Hare, no. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Go Premanande. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. One more. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama
Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna
Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premanande. Now, as promised, we have Hansapriya, who's the mastermind behind setting up this festival and running it. She thinks about it all year long and puts together over 36 teams that have put this together, and she has a couple of announcements to make. Let's hear it for Hansapriya and her crew.
we could not have done it if we didn't have the non-stop chanting from His grace, Visheshika Prabhu. So, right back at you. That's his.
Kochira Koso.
Okay. So, first of all, we would not have been able to do this festival if you would have not joined us. So we want to thank you from bottom of our heart on behalf of ISKCON of Silicon Valley to thank you for coming and spending the day with us. So you have gone out of your way, and thank you for being with us. So please, a big round of applause for your own self to be here today. We are very grateful to each and every one of you who has donated somehow or other to make this festival very successful tonight. And we could not have done also this festival very well if we didn't have your help. We had 168 volunteers and 32 teams that you dedicated. So thank you very much for going out of your way and doing quite a bit of austerities on Janmashtami, Shri Krishna birthday. And we want, last two things I'll just mention very quick. I don't want you to take away your time from the beautiful kirtan that we're having. I want all of you to request and be mindful of our neighbors. It's a weeknight. We want to be respectful. So when we leave tonight or we have prasad in parking lot, we keep it as quiet as we can. So that way we are not interrupting our neighbors. So we would request that if you take prasadam quietly or take it to go and find your cars. If you need shuttle, volunteers would be out there. But if we can make it as smooth as possible, we could appreciate your help there. And we request all of you to come back tomorrow. Tomorrow is the appearance day of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So this is a beautiful, beautiful day, and actually you will much more relish it tomorrow after all this austerity. So please be here starting 8 a.m. sharp. I know it's a working day, but we all also know how to call day off at work, right? So let's go. You know, we all can come forward and have the continuation of this blissful kirtan and harikatha and sadhu sangha. So we'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Hare Krishna. Thank you once again for coming tonight.